All right, so in this video, we are going to work with elevation and section views. Okay, so we're going to create elevation view and use it to modify the model. And in addition, we're going to learn about the differences between the three types of section views like building section, wall section, and detail view. Okay, so the first thing that we will be doing, let's create a building elevation view. Okay, so I'm just gonna zoom into this part here. Okay, and then from the view tab, since elevation has something to do with view, you can go to the create panel and then you can see the elevation there. So click the drop down and then I'm going to select here elevation, this one, elevation. So it creates an elevation view. So I'm gonna select this. Okay, there you go. And then after that, I'm going to place my elevation somewhere here. And then you will notice that the building elevation automatically orients to the face of the wall elements, right? You see? It orients to the face of the wall element automatically. So now I'm going to click here to add an elevation tag to our plan view. So if I click here, so there is a new elevation view that will be added here on our project browser. Okay, so let's place one and there you go. So there's the elevation, building elevation. Okay, so I'm going to select here modify to terminate the tool and then I'm going to expand the elevation here. I'm gonna rename this. So right click, rename. Okay, so I call this South Foundation Wall. Okay, and then enter. There you go. Okay, so it is always a good practice to rename the views you plan to use for documentation as you generate them. Okay, because this speeds up the process of creating and assembling sheets for the drawing set. Okay, so now I'm going to select the arrow part of the elevation. So let me just click that. Okay, and then you can see here the boundary on up to where my elevation will be able to see the model or the range of my model. Okay, so I'm going to select this arrow here. See, you can change that one. Okay, so you can see the continuous blue line here represents the plane in which the view is being cut. Okay, so you can always move that one and then you can click this and then you can drag as well, right? So just click the arrow part and then you'll be able to adjust the boundary there. Okay, so if you want to open the view, just double click that arrow part or just double click here from the project browser. Just double click and then you will now be able to see your South Foundation Wall. Okay, so now the next thing that we will be doing is we're going to add an opening to the foundation wall. Okay, so this is our foundation wall. Okay, so we are going to create an opening here. So I'm gonna change my detail, the scale here. So instead of 1:100, I'm gonna make it 1:50. Okay, and then my detail level, so maybe I change that to medium. Okay, so just click that to medium. Okay, and then after that, you see this opening here, this one, opening. So if I want this to check in the 3D view, so I'm going to select the opening and then I'm going to select this icon here, selection box, just click that and then you can see the opening there. So I can also select the section box there if I want to adjust it. All right. Or another way, I can go back to my South Foundation Wall and then select the wall here and then I'll just select again the selection box. There you go. Okay. Right, so I'm gonna close that view. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select South Foundation Wall and then I select here tile views so I can see side by side. Alright, so I'll just make this 1:100. Fine. There you go. So now I'm going to select my opening here. So let's click the opening. And then we are going to use the copy tool. Copy can be found here on the modify panel. You can see the copy tool there. So I'm going to select this. Okay, and then I'm going to click the base point here. So I'm going to select my grid B. And then I'm going to pick my 8.5 to place a copy of the opening. There you go. So there's the opening. Okay, and then after that, I'll just select here modify. So here in my 3D view, okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn off the section box on my 3D view to show the whole 3D model. There you go. All right. So now the next thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a building section view. Okay, so let's create a building section view. So I'm gonna open my basement. So double click the basement view here. And then after that, from the view tab, I'm going to select here section. So let's click the section. And then you can click the drop down arrow here to select, let's say, building section. So let's select the building section. Okay, and then I'm gonna change my scale here. So probably I'll just change the scale to 1:50 as well. So 1:50 for my basement. All right. And then we are now ready to place our section. To place a section, you just need to click 2 points. Okay. So by the way, another way of selecting section, instead of going to the view tab and then selecting the section there, you can just simply go to your quick access toolbar. Okay, so by default your section is already placed here on your quick access toolbar because we use this most of the time. Okay, so section, and then I'll be selecting here building section. Okay, so I'm going to place here. So I'm just going to pick the first point. Okay, and then for the second point, I'm going to pick somewhere here. And then again, there is a new view that was created on your project browser. So if I expand that, so you can see there your section 1. And then you also notice if you click your section, so there's the range, okay, of your section. So notice that the far clip plane extends past the farthest model element in the direction of the section. Okay, so this is an attribute of building section. Okay, so we can use the shape handle here to adjust the far clip plane of the building section. So let's say, for example, I just want that to be placed somewhere here. Okay. All right, and then I'm just gonna rename my section here. So right click section 1, rename. So I'm gonna call this, this is a building section along what's that, grid 2, enter. Okay, so that's grid, should be grid 3. Okay, so along grid 3. Okay, there you go. Okay, so maybe I'll just make it grid 2. Okay, so let me just rename that grid 2, and then I'll just click my section. Let's move that. Move. So I'm gonna pick my grid number 3 as my base point, and then I'm going to pick my grid number 2 as my base point 2. Okay, there you go. So building section along grid 2. So now I'm going to double click my section head here to open my building section along grid 2. Double click this, or you can also double click here on the project browser. Double click to open, and there you go. Okay, so as you can see here, the crop region. So you can hide the crop region here if you want. So you can click the crop region here, And then you can right click and then you can hide it if you want. Or another option is you can also turn off the crop region here. So hide crop region. So if you click that, it will hide the crop region. Okay, so next thing that we will be doing, let us create a foundation wall section. Okay, so this is a building section, right? So this time, let's create a foundation wall section. So let me just go back again to my basement. Let me just close this, close my other views. Okay, so here's my basement. So I'm going to create a foundation wall section view. Okay, so let's select the section here, click the section, and then after that, I'm gonna change the properties. I'll select here wall section. So let me click that. All right, and then I'm going to place one here. So the first point and then the second point here. There you go. So there's a new section created, wall section, section 1. So let me just change the scale here, 1:100. Okay, and then let me create another section. Okay, so let me create one, 2. You notice the other section disappeared after I changed the scale. All right, there you go. So let me just delete my section 1 there. I don't need that. All right. Okay, so you can see here, unlike my building section, notice that my far clip plane does not extend past the farthest model element in the direction of the section. So the wall section is limited to the location where it is cut. Okay, so now let us rename this one. So let's rename this. Right click the section 2, and then I'll just select rename. So I'll call this typical foundation wall section. Enter. Okay, and then let's open up our typical foundation wall section, and there you go. Okay, so now I'm going to select the crop region here, which is this one. I select the crop region, and then you will also notice that there are some tools here or nodes that we can use to adjust our section. Okay, and same with this icon here that we can use to break our crop. Okay, so we can use that to break it. Like for example, I want to break my section here, so I'm gonna select this one. See, so it's now broken. So I can also adjust that one. Okay, I can adjust like that, and then I can also break like that, and then I can adjust. Okay, so let me just tidy up. So there's the adjustment. Okay, I'll just move it up. Something like this. All right. Okay, and then let me just change the scale here to, let's say, 1:50. And after that, I'm going to hide my crop region. So to do that, just hide this one. There you go. Okay, so we now have two sections here. So we have the building section along grid 2, the building section, and then we also have a wall section here, and then we also created south foundation wall building elevation. So this time, let us create a footing detail view. Okay, So let's go back to our basement here. So let me open that. Let me close my typical foundation wall section. And then I'm going to, let's say, zoom to this part here. Okay? All right. So I'm going to create my third section. So I'm going to select the section tool and then the drop down here. Okay, so this time I'm going to select detail. Okay, so we already created building section, wall section, and then this time I'm going to select detail. So let me click this. Okay, and then let me change the scale. So say 1:20 for this one. All right, and then I'm going to pick the first point here. And then I'm going to pick the second point. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to select this. And then I'm going to change the scale of this section. So maybe I'm just going to put it back to 1:100. Let me just undo one step to delete the last section I created. And then I'll change this to 1:100. So what I'm going to do is I'll just select the section again, detail. And then I'm going to create my detailed view there. Now, I'm going to select my detailed view and I'm going to change the scale of that. Okay, so I'll change the scale to 1:20. Okay, 1:20. There you go. So the view created for this detailed view is gonna be 1:20. So if I double click this to open up, so you can see that it's 1:20, right? Or you can just, if this is like, for example, 1:100 a while ago, so you can also open your detailed view and then you can change from here and make it 1:20. Okay? Right. So now, let us rename this. Where is that? This one. Detail. So right click and then I select here rename. I'll call this typical footing detail. Enter. Okay, and then after that, let me just adjust my crop view. All right, and then let me hide it. Okay. So now what I have is the basement. I created the basement. And then I also have a 3D view. I also create the south foundation wall, building section along grid 2, and typical foundation wall section. So now I'm going to tile it. There you go. And then I'll just select here, zoom all to fit. So I can type ZA. So that's the shortcut of zoom all to fit. So I'll type ZA. There you go. Okay. So hopefully you learned something from this video. So this is how you work with your elevation and section views. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.